You're watching the Eternal Tournament Series.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the ETS Round 5. I'm here with Sir Rhino.
Hello, hello, hello.
And we are looking at a Chalice control deck versus a Felnscar control deck for what should be a really exciting matchup.
Yeah, these were kind of the decks of the tournament last week, and now they're back with some minor adjustments to, take into account the new meta. Namely, Felnscar control is now Felnscar control instead of just Feln control. It's still essentially Feln control, but it's adding fire for Quarry, Hoprex the Great Ruin. What do you think about that, Pojo?
Who doesn't love Voprex the Great Ruin? It's a grand card here. It should be pretty okay against the Chalice control decks. Those decks tend to have a lot of units on the board and a lot of stuff in hand, of course. Overall, I think it's a good way to win the late game and should be pretty solid with the Vara effects. The overall amount of just bringing things back from the void should be a decent pickup for Tatavath.
The other thing Tatavath is picking up here is 4 torches in the sideboard, and as many ruins as they'd like, up to 4, but opting to just have 1 ruin, an extra Voprex, but just making a nice little Celestial Omen pack on that board. Meanwhile, ECV is bringing TJP Chalice. How about we talk about that?
TJP Chalice, we have seen a lot of this deck in the meta in recent weeks. It's a pretty slow deck that tends to rely on all of these smaller units, Taler's Favored, Temple Scribe, and Amber Acolyte, and just basically gets infinite amounts of draws and tries to basically slow the board down to the point where it can finish off with either Channel the Tempest, which isn't in this current deck, and the Great Parliament, which is a way to sort of add a little bit of extra push at the end of the game.
Yep, ECV going for more just mid-range build of Chalice, I suppose, with no channel reach. But if you notice, take a look at the sideboard. There's 3 Channel the Tempest hanging out there to come in the necessary matchups where you just need to keep going over the top of whatever your opponent's doing. So ECV's entire sideboard is really just dedicated to going bigger and better. The main deck just built to handle aggro, whereas the sideboard's got excavates, decays, protects, backlash, channels. It's just all these big swingy cards that either swing the game or protect your own swing.
Yeah, and it's a pretty good style. Of course, you know that you're going to be facing down like some early Rakano and some early aggression, and the deck is already pretty solid against most control matchups, so it's nice to keep it sort of low to the ground and make sure that you have answers to the early stuff, Combre Healer, that kind of stuff. But I'm sure we'll be seeing those channels coming in against Tatavath's more slow control deck with very little early game.
So this game is now underway. Tatavath's keeping a hand that's got good fixing for his deck and a Quarry and just some removal spells and a champion. That seems like all you want in Felnscar. Meanwhile, ECV missing a Justice Source for now, but picks it up there on the Huru banner. And now it's the choice of either getting a Wisdom or developing the board with like a Combre Healer. But I imagine you're just going to keep digging until you find the namesake. There it is, Chalice, right on time. So ECV's got to be extremely happy with how that turned.
It's good to have that early on, especially since Tatavath is not putting a lot of pressure on your opponent. We have Voprex the Great Ruin coming into Tatavath's hand as an
6
early
cost.
play.
Yeah.
6 Voprex. Times.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So Tatavath, even if he doesn't draw power here, has the Vera's Favor, but does find power and just trots out the Bloodcaster there. Has the Stray into Shadow in hand to at least help manage this board when he needs it. Don't expect it to come out anytime too soon. It's one of the cleaner answers you can have to like a Great Parliament. Your opponent's packing 3 of those, and you don't have any Backlash's main deck, so wouldn't be surprised to see Tatavath really try and hold on to this Stray and instead just develop his threats in the
Yeah, he's definitely got a decent setup for getting a bunch of card advantage. With Chalice, he's going to be able to draw pretty much everything that he needs for the next couple of turns. He's going to be running 2 draws a turn for quite some time.
Yeah.
But Voprex is a pretty solid play on Tatavath's side, and the Black Sky Harbingers are definitely allowing him to push some of those smaller units out, which costs him cards in the long run.
Yeah, real small thing that happened there that may not have been an easy thing to notice was that ECV opted to buff the Amber Acolyte instead of the Talir's Favor. And that's big with your opponent having Vera's Favor in there. If you chose to buff the Talir's Favor instead, would have been denied a draw step from that 2-1 because it would have died to Vera's Favor there. those little things may not seem like a big decision, but they add up over the course of a long game like this matchup.
Yeah, and Tatavath might eventually be forced to play that straight into Shadow if these smaller units continue to develop at the speed that they're developing. I think that overall, we don't see a lot from Tatavath that's pressuring. He needs to get himself up to 5 Primal or 5 Shadow to make Champion of Cunning a more appealing play.
Yeah, I imagine Voprex is just going to come down on this turn. Just either going to deal with this board or it's going to deal with the board. I'd be very surprised if it took out the hand.
Certainly not a bad play.
But now Tatavath decides to wait.
Yeah, I think that I'm not sure I agree with that there. You generally want to get Voprex out at some point because like ECV is just going to be drawing more cards and playing more stuff.
If I'm not playing Voprex, I'm going to play Black Sky Harbor.
Yeah,
I just don't see a reason to do nothing. You have to put some sort of pressure down. Yeah, you don't have to play Champion of Cunning until he gets Aegis. I get that. But you've got a Vera in hand. Sure, they're holding up 2 power, but they're going to be able to do that for the rest of the game anyways. I think you need to get something down.
This is like these decks from ECV, like the Crystal and Chalice deck in general, is sometimes considered a control deck, but also can really just end up being like sort of a mid-rangey beaters deck. Like it definitely has a lot of aggressive stuff in terms of all of these little guys getting bigger and bigger. I think that overall Tatavath is going to have to do something to deal with it, and it looks like this Voprex is a 5 or 7, or 5 or 7, just a really, really solid play.
Yep. So Voprex comes down. ECV's got to decide if he wants to keep the board or the hand. That's a tough call here. You've got a good board. You know your opponent plays Stray, but you don't know if they would have pulled the trigger on it by now. Your hand doesn't have that many great cards, but they all represent +1 draw because of your Chalice. I think you're going to sack all units here. I think that's what I would.
Seems pretty reasonable, yeah. So
they're mostly blanked by the 5/5 anyway.
Yeah, ECV could try to like just ditch his hand and like capitalize on the Chalice, but it seems like losing out on the tempo of the board should be fine for him. And that Voprex is a 5/5 unit, so it's definitely going to be able to continue to push. Yeah. Even if your opponent gets a great Parliament down, you have that straight into Shadow for later.
Notably, this Voprex did dodge a silence and is probably going to continue dodging a silence. But it looks like ECV might be digging for one because he knows his opponent's playing Vera. Like the Vera Voprex interaction could be a real bad thing. And yeah, he opts to probably no. Okay, he's gonna just Scorpion Wasp it anyway. I thought maybe he would have like Martial Vanquish there or something instead, but you do also you have to keep in mind how many different angles this Voprex deck's attacking from with Champion of Cunning.
Yeah, we have like a decent amount of pressure from Tatavath. It's going to be like these Felon Bloodcasters give him some amount of card advantage, but ECV is drawing just a few more cards overall. Tatavath's really still looking for that influence. I
just find it odd that he's not playing these like anything there. I realize your opponent has a harsh rule, but I mean a 2/5 is not enough to. You have to put something else on this board. Why are you just sitting here letting your opponent draw more cards than you? Like even just a Bloodcaster, like would be enough to at least give you a bit better blocks and not be on a clock. And then if you draw power, you can draw cards here. I just feel like doing nothing. It just doesn't make sense with how much resources you have in hand. You don't mind losing a card.
The late game case is that his Vara can get back Voprex over and over again, and that'll force ECV to make tough choices over and over again. Mm-hmm. But ECV's already like getting pretty close to having twice as many cards as Tatavath, like just on board and in hand.
And plus that Vera's only going to get it back once. Your opponent's got a bunch of like Vanquish stuff in hand. You're going to just start discarding to hand size. I would have omened for a power there rather. I legitimately think that. Like
So we have Omen. Omen could definitely get him a power, could get him.
Well, now it's not good.
No, there's not that many options.
Yeah, I just don't really know what. I'm missing something here from Tatavath. Like, are you going to Omen for a gift now and hope to hit your 7th power? Like, I understand that's powerful, but I just don't know why you're doing nothing. Like, this is how people die with 6 or 7 cards still in hand. They just overvalue it. You're not going to get max value out of all these cards in hand, and you don't need to. You need to just stay alive so that your Vera Voprex interactions can actually do what they need to do, and playing stuff like Black Sky Harbinger will help you get to that point.
And we have a Mystic Ascendant here, which is going to give ECV even more card draw. Second Crystalline Chalice coming down as well. That means he'll be able to basically, as long as he has power, he'll just be continuing to draw cards and spending all of his power every turn. He can play multiple small units, draw cards off of those. He can play power, draw cards off of those. At this point, ECV is going to be cycling through a bunch of his deck and putting it out on the board.
Yeah, see, so like here he opts to use permafrosts on these units where okay, it's like at least you annihilate the Ascendant and now you're under less pressure.
Yeah, Azindel's Gift will help him out somewhat. Now that he's permafrosted the board, he's got a little bit more control over it. Gift is definitely the card that he kind of needs against this deck, but it's a question of whether or not ECV can recover. And I think that with double chalices, he should be okay for just continuing to play down every card that he gets.
Yeah, the Azindel's Gift will help a little bit. It's not going to be this huge backbreaking card. It will make ECV discard some whenever this gift shows up. The problem is because Tatavath has been opting to not develop his board on any of these turns by not playing these Harbingers or whatever. The turn he does play this gift, he might be under too much pressure here. I mean, ECV just buffed 2 of these units. He's got 11 attack already in play.
Yeah, and with the Felon Bloodcaster only blocking the Temple Scribe, really, can block the 4/4, but either way, there's still 7 here that's available.
See, this is another odd play for me. I guess again he's saving Stray now for the Parliament reload, so he just wants to use the permafrost instead to take out the 4/4s. That's like kind of justifiable, but this is a rough spot for Tatavath. This is a really tough spot.
Yeah, it seems like it might end up being very tricky for him. We have the champion still not getting anywhere close to that influence. That's one of the real risks of running champion in this triple color deck. Like, you really aren't very likely to activate them, at least not early in the game. Tatavath has some ways to secure, but at this point, ECV is running pretty far out of control.
Yeah, Tatavath doesn't even have things that could really swing this game back in his favor, other than again another like Voprex or Barachains, but he's stuck on power. But we'll see where this goes. I just don't know how Tatavath's going to be able to hold on long enough for like his Vera gift combo, I guess if you want to call it that, to really bail him out of this.
Gonna be a tough time. He has Bloodcaster draws. He really just needs power. There's so much that he can do at 7 that just isn't really happening for him here. The Stray into Shadow will help clear the board out. If he can get his Azindel's Gift plus Stray, that'll really help him. Yeah,
the Stray will be nice here in that it deals with this Parliament, but it's not going to deal with the next one.
Shadow Sigil here sets him up for 7. He still can't really gift because he has to go for the Stray, but yeah, that looks like it's probably going to end up being at least a bit of damage here.
Yep. So ECV has drawn all of the Harsh Rules. Would get discarded by this gift, but I don't think Tatavath will be able to play gift this next turn if ECV goes ahead and presents lethal with a Parliament. Oh, I guess it doesn't quite present lethal. So yeah, ECV's got some decisions to make here. Maybe lead out with the Marshal to draw a card and silence the card draw. Is that a spot to start? You could also just throw out a Harsh Rule. You could even Marshal one of your own units here.
Yeah, if Tatavath wants to and draws the 8th power, he could always try to Vara back up Voprex and see if he can force ECV to make the decision between his hand and his board again. Because in this situation, ECV is going to want all of the board cards that he's played. So anything that Tatavath can do to influence the board state before that Azindel's Gift is going to be very helpful. Yeah,
so ECV opts to just Harsh Rule. And Tatavath now finally plays a Harbinger out. But that's just, it's going to gain some life and then get grounded here probably. We'll see.
At least it's a silence target, so that's really nice. Like, having these Harbingers out earlier would have been very helpful for him just because they draw those silences, and the less silences there are, the more likely he's going to get some value out of Vara. From here, though, he's facing down 3 12/12 Owls, or 3 4/4 Owls, which is 12 damage, and the Harbingers are only gaining him 4. If ECV draws another silence, which he does not have at the moment, then he can push through for even more.
All right. Well, there's a banner, so Vera can get Voprex. Fortunately, they're both vanquished.
That's actually really good for him, though, because
yeah,
if ECV sacrifices the board,
Hmm.
then Azindil's Gift becomes a really solid choice.
Yeah, that's true. If this is good here. Oh wait.
Okay.
Huh. Conceded.
Yeah.
I missed something there. Because if he destroys the board, he's got a 5/5 flyer. If he doesn't, he's got the biggest. Oh, was he just dead to 2/4/4 flyers? Was that it? He was at 6. Yeah,
it's possible. Yeah,
he could only
might have
block one
just
out.
needed to
Yeah,
play-
he was dead. Right.
play Harbinger there.
Right.
Okay, fair enough.
Math is a thing. Sure. Life totals are important. So again, as I kind of predicted, Tatavath was going to die with what 6 or so cards in hand. I think that's what ended up happening. It just decided to hold on for a bit too long. When you're in control deck and you're stuck on power, you don't have to get the most out of your cards. You just have to play them. And I don't think Tatavath quite recognized.
I still don't agree with I concede, especially since it's up to your opponent to make that decision as to whether to make the right or wrong decision, and it's pretty tempting to throw away those owls and miss the lethal. I think that's an easy mistake to make. He should have at least waited for his opponent.
Yeah, I will agree. That's a very odd time to. Both a little surprised by it. At least let them make the choice. Give them the opportunity to misclick.
All right. So we have Parliament still coming in. The Channel of the Tempests are coming in for the control deck, or at least they appear to be. We're seeing the 90 cards get whittled down to 75. Permafrosts are at least going down to 2.
Yeah, I imagine both decks are going to shave on Permafrosts. Tatavath is certainly going to at least bring in that one Ruin. Maybe I don't know how Rain of Frogs really performs in this matchup. It gives them Crystalline Chalice targets, but it's also a way to take Crystalline Chalice out. And things like Parliament or Harsh Rule, which could be swingy cards. So, and Channel of the Tempest. So I imagine Frogs comes in, but it is kind of funny playing Frogs against a deck with Chalice in it.
For ECV, the goal here is going to be to make his control deck even better against other control decks by increasing the long game. For Tatavath, it's going to be a question of, I think, perhaps even getting a bit more aggressive or getting a bit more low to the ground. Cards like Rain of Frogs and Withering Witch aren't necessarily aggressive cards, but they are cards that can really mess up a control deck's day and allow you to pressure a little bit more. Tatavath wants to play more aggressively this game and try and get out some of those bigger units that also have those massive board effects like Harbinger and Voprex.
Mm-hmm. All right, so it looks like the challenge is out. We'll be getting to this game shortly.
Yeah, just waiting for a little bit. Play the lights out, Ace Wrap again.
Okay, they're still doing some sideboarding. Looks like Tatavath had decided to not bring in 2 sabotages, just 1. Tasteful number of sabotages.
Seems reasonable. Sabotage is nice for hitting Crystal and Chalice, but it's not nice for hitting that many other things. Great Parliament, I think, is the only other big target for it, and that's actually not bad.
Tatavath has a hand that has Stray, and I guess that's just good enough in itself. Film Plug Gasser plus Stray.
Power in a control matchup is actually just way better than a hand with good cards in it.
Oh yeah. You want as much power as possible. Especially after last game in Tatavath's head, he's like, "Oh, I got stuck on 6. I can only cast most of my hand. Damn it all."
Yep. And then he wouldn't cast the 6 drops. So we have Justice Primal. We have Time. It looks like ECV is playing for a decent amount of success. And I think that overall this is looking pretty good.
Yeah, that's a nice Ruin draw there. It's always nice to find your singleton sideboard tech card for this kind of matchup. Taking out that first Chalice will be a big deal here.
Okay, we have Ruin and Bloodcasters. Looks like Tatavath has a good option against the Chalice, which is very important. But
come on, Tatavath, hit the
small guys.
What? Man,
sorry. Have I got him switched?
If I'm Tatavath, I'm attacking there. I love getting him for chip damage. But I'm okay with trading 2 for 2 early on.
The Crystal and Chalice comes down. That's a automatic Ruin, I think. Just easy way to spend your turn.
That is why Ruin is in your deck.
Yep.
So, okay.
One less Chalice, one less Scourge upon the world. We have Film Bloodcaster as a possible play here. I guess if you're Tatavath, you're worried about Harsh Rules.
Yeah, he's just respecting Harshal right now. Doesn't want both of his Bloodcasters to die to 1. So he's just playing them out one at a time, hoping to get to 7 power.
Bloodcasters are especially nice with the Stray into Shadow because you can still have a 2/1 after you've wiped your opponent's board of stuff.
Oh yeah. None of Tatavath's cards in the entire deck died to Stray other than Withering Witch. Everything else survives it.
Yep,
It's a
very
nice
Withering
feature.
Witch is sort of a cause of you kind of expect that result from Withering Witch.
All right, Steward's not really that a large impact card in this matchup, so I wouldn't be surprised if Tatavath just throws it out to up the pressure. But the threat of activation from this Bloodcaster might be enough to get the Harshal out anyways, but not with the Marshal in East.
Yeah, it's true. He might be offering him a little bit too much for the Harshal here, but at this point, like Bloodcaster was always going to be that threat.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think you probably, if you want to keep your cards, you might actually go that route. But at the same time, ECV can always just Desert Marshal the Felon Bloodcaster if you don't play anything.
Yeah, you can justify both ways. I like playing, making them have it.
Just making sure that your opponent has certain threats is very important against the Chalice deck. The Chalice deck wants to sit on its but not do anything. So doing anything to force it to react is going to slowly decrease that card count and give them less and less options later in the game.
Yeah, and Marshal getting your Bloodcaster is annoying. It's shutting down some of your card draw, but you've still got a Vera in hand to help reload and whatever else is on the top of your deck, 4 more Wisdoms and other stuff. So.
And for every Marshal and Harshal you knock out of your opponent's hand, that's 1 less Marshal and Harshal that's being used to counter your Champion of Cunning late and your Vara the Fate Touched.
Yeah, Vara, Voprex, Champion of Cunning, all those things are your real tickets to winning this matchup. So you're okay with this.
It looks like Withering Witch, not terribly effective against ECV's current setup, but might be helpful against Mystic Ascendant. It'll at least reduce it down to the point where he can Stray, although that will take a turn, and Mystic Ascendant will draw 2 cards in the meantime.
Yeah, it looks like Mystic Ascendant is going to be drawing a lot of cards. Tatavath draws a not quite fully buffed Champion of Cunning off the top, but at least it's got the Flying Aegis part of it, so gets to present a clock here for now.
Yeah, he just slams that card. I think there is still some merit to the Withering Witch play, so I'm surprised that was just such an immediate. We are going to see some flying attacks, and Tatavath's going to try and put a little pressure on ECV, although the 8/8 is probably going to counter that pressure back pretty well.
Yeah, the 8/8 is going to come in pretty hard, and now ECV can actually go back to just stalling if he wants by just using Comrade Healer to pop Aegis and then Desert Marshal to silence the fire. It depends on how annoyed he's going to be by this 5/5 flyer. Tatavath's only at 3 shadow sources right now, so it's not like it's going to start buffing anytime soon. It's just a 5/5 flyer that's annoying. But it looks like ECV respects it enough to at least pop the Aegis for now. He may still opt to draw cards instead of use Desert Marshal here. We'll see.
Tatavath getting his 3rd fire.
Yep, so that Voprex is
Flame Blast in his deck? Voprex. Got it.
Voprex has a high cost to turn. So, Tatavath's nervous about Desert Marshal. Decides to shoot off the Stray here. And that way, if a Desert Marshal shows up, it's still going to just trade with Desert Marshal now. Going to get eaten by... I don't know about that. I feel like if you're sniffing out a Desert Marshal, you swing with the 5/5, it gets silenced, gets blocked, and then you play Witch.
Yeah, there's a case here where at least he has double blockers against the Mystic Ascendant if the Mystic Ascendant draws a card.
Yeah.
But I think that it is probably the stronger play to attack with the champion.
But now you have no plan to kill the Mystic Ascendant. The real problem. And you don't get to attack with your champion. Because it's like, okay, you shrunk Mystic Ascendant, but it's going to keep going. Now you have no answer.
Mystic is spiraling rapidly out of control.
Yeah.
And unless Tatavath can find something, a Voprex, a Death Strike, any sort of spell that can actually answer the Ascendant, going to keep drawing him cards the same way that Crystal and Chalice would. ECV's also sitting on a 2nd Chalice. He can play it out if he wants to and get another card draw.
Yeah, the world's kind of ECV's oyster at this point. I mean, yeah, there's a 5/1 flyer on the other end of the board, but he's got 30 life. He's not.
Yeah, I think Tatavath maybe made the opposite mistakes here from last game, where he's been playing really aggressively with cards that he actually wanted to conserve a little bit. There's a fine balance to strike, to be certain. Voprex is going to actually force the Ascendant to its death, or possibly just. I think either option's probably pretty bad for ECV, so Voprex is definitely doing its job.
Yeah, Voprex is nice there.
Yeah, Tatavath now actually gets to push a bunch of damage.
Yep, so Harsh will reset the board, Vara will bring it back, Harsh will reset it again.
Harsh will kill, like, Vara can be used against like a Great Parliament. He might even wait on the Vara here. This is actually a situation where he wants to conserve cards because he's just so far behind on actual threats to play.
I think you kind of have to hope that your opponent just has nothing in.
Yeah, he's got nothing here, so he's got to go for it.
Your opponent's already demonstrated they have a Chalice in play now. Like, I don't know how you think making this game go longer is in your advantage.
With the Chalice down, each Vara is going to get him like a better Voprex. The main thing that I'd really want to see here is the Great Parliament before you Vara, but
sure,
it's tough either way.
I was thinking that actually Varying just back the 5/1 flying may have just been instead of Voprex there, just like get the flying Aegis unit.
Oh yeah, if you could get Champion back with 5 Shadow, that's pretty reasonable. He did get the Desert Marshal out of ECV's hand, so that's one less silence, and that means that there's just one less potential threat for Vara to be threatened by.
Yeah. Oof.
Permafrost, a pretty imperfect answer here. Both players definitely did want to shave those cards. They're just not really doing a lot. Basically, Tatavath is looking for more strays, more big value cards. Black Sky Harbinger, Voprex the Great Ruin, Stray into Shadow.
Meanwhile, ECV is going to be drawing 3 cards a turn essentially from here on.
Yep. Yeah, Ruins and Furnace Mages are also very high value cards for Tatavath.
Unfortunately, Tatavath's already used his only Ruin and has no Furnace Mage.
All right, he's going for the Vara.
All right,
it's going to hit the Voprex, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if he had the 5 Shadow for Champion, but that probably wouldn't help him all that much.
No. The Champion buff is largely irrelevant on this board. So, yep, Voprex deals with the board, and then Harsh will deal with the board back. Then ECV is just going to be miles ahead here.
Yep, Tatavath needs card draw, and he needs answers. If he has any wisdoms, those are good things to pick up. But like just in general, he's looking for the big value cards, and I think he still only has 1 Vara. There weren't any more in his sideboards, so he's already out his biggest threat.
Well, no, Tatavath was playing 3 Varas main deck.
Oh, so, yeah, fair enough.
Like he's got some good draws. It's going to take a lot to get him out of this. It's still possible, but it's
Vara into Voprex is definitely a pretty strong play. Withering Witch is going to control the board a little bit. He's mostly just waiting things out. The ECV has access to channel the Tempest, so that's pretty reasonable, but doesn't really work very well against his Islands.
Yeah, you could just
board later.
You could just channel the 1/1 here, hit him for 8.
ECV's on his 3rd Harsh Rule out of 4. He's got the Harsh Rule in hand, but if Tatavath can force out more Varas, then it is going to be a way to turn the game. Still, he needs better luck than he's got with these top decks. Yeah, because he's spent his hand, and it's not working.
Yeah, ECV recognizing he essentially has no way to pop this Aegis on the face, so rather just use the channel there and save the Permafrost.
Black Sky Harbinger would be an okay pickup for Tatavath here.
Oh, yeah. Harbinger would be great.
Get a bit of health back. Yeah. Steals a card from the top of his opponent's deck, but he isn't going to be able to play that card, so he still
also keeps him
a lot of damage.
Yeah.
Marison's Disciple. That's decent. That actually gives him some solid blockers.
Yeah. So ECV, while drawing all these cards, is getting dangerously close to running out of gas, but it looks like he's going to get to reload.
There's
here.
The lethal.
And the Permafrost is lethal. Right.
Channel the Tempest would have done it as well. Anything that kills the Felon Bloodcaster. combined with that exact amount of damage. Scorpion Wasp was unnecessary, but
Yeah, so that's that was a beatdown from
Yep.
Chalice Control there.
Chalice Control did a very, very good job there. I think just won out on the overall overwhelming value of the anti-control. So yeah, it's good stuff. Definitely being able to create a bunch of units to beat down is a really good way to answer control decks, and that worked out pretty well.
Yeah, when all of your units replace themselves immediately, that's a nice recipe to beat a control deck for sure.
I think we have no backups here, but we do have a special announcement. Is that correct, Rhino?
I don't know if I'd call it a special announcement, but we've got some things to talk about for sure. Let's see. So yeah, we just wanted to do a quick plug on just aReNGee Eternal, the website that helps run this whole event. It's an awesome website. There's daily articles from all of your favorite or maybe even least favorite players, depending on where they end up, such as LocoPojo, aReNGee, Neon, Lights Out Ace, just lots of great names making great content. Ranked tier lists and stock lists every week, as well as draft pick orders if you're into that kind of stuff. And of course, all the latest tournament info from tournaments such as the one happening right now. So recommend you go check out aReNGeeEternal.com for all that awesome Eternal content.
Yeah, it's a good way to spend the time between rounds. And on that note, we are actually going to take a short break. We will be back for round 6 in just a little bit, guys.